How do you develop the inner resources to embrace the challenges of living from great strength? We all are on a journey. And the deal, what we find, is that as we progress on that journey, what used to work back then no longer works now. We have to start looking, how do we build a higher order for us to live from and to do from, rather than what we used to be? Well, I want to tell you, it's not easy. You probably figured that out. The way this thing really works is that we have something I call the caveman brain. It would be called the emotional brain. It would be called the mammalian brain. We initially get organized to survive in a particular world. It locks in, and we grow and we work and we move. And all of a sudden what we discover is that what used to work no longer works now. And yet at the same time, when we try to change it, it seems to be locked in place. We find ourselves doing the same stupid things over and over again, despite knowing they don't work anymore, but we keep doing them. What's going on? This caveman brain is also known as the mammalian brain and the emotional brain. The deal is it coordinates activity between us, an organism, and the environment. That's what it does. In fact, emotions really, from a scientific standpoint, are biological action potentials that coordinate activity, effective action between the environment and the organism. If you get that, that's what I'm actually talking about as the caveman brain. Ultimately, when you got born remarkably unfinished compared to other social mammalians, and we live wire as we go along, and before you know it, at birth, chimpanzee, a very near relative of ours, is actually about 9 months ahead of the infant. And it takes another 9 months, something called external gestation, for that infant human to catch up to the chimpanzee, and then it just explodes past him. But the deal is that caveman brain is that part of you that's organizing you to survive long before you can think. And it comes locked in. And in the locking in, suddenly it's on automatic, it fires habitually. It doesn't need the thinking brain anymore. And it just says, this is the comfort zone, and this is what we're doing. And we fall into that. And even though the pattern that was established is no longer effective, it wants to stay that way. It's a habit now. And it keeps triggering, taking out the thinking brain. And before you know it, you keep doing the same stupid things over and over again. That's the caveman brain. And what we want to do is start finding these sabotaging moments that you have in your life. And you have them. If you're a human being, you have them. You may not acknowledge them, or you just may become thinking, oh, this is just my plot in life. No, it's simply an organization of the self that needs updating. And the key is, how do you go about updating it? First thing is to start looking at that self-limiting pattern. And the one that I had to look at very hard for myself was a conversation, my beliefs about money. I grew up in a family where intergenerational wealth had been lost the generation before me, and my cousin and I are always trying to get the money back. You know, the O'Connors stole it, the Macmillans are going to get it back. I had no idea, but I was developing a pattern of where, as I grew up, I was not thinking about money as something you build from. No, what I was thinking about money as is something you get back. That polluted, and understand, it worked effectively for a long time. Now it didn't. And I had to learn to be able to spot that belief and then to transform it into higher functioning. Fortunately, I did that, okay? So we've gotten this thing, and the big difference you need to look at is the emotional brain, that caveman brain of yours, is thinking about short-term survival. It doesn't think about long-term thriving. It's just not on the dossier, okay? So what we're looking at already is that we're going to have to say, I know that this part of me that forms these patterns, survival patterns, emotional patterns, is in fact a very ancient part of me. And I'm going to have to learn to work with it. And this is where you get to the point where you go, okay, I'm a smart person. I've got IQ. I've got knowledge. I just can apply it when I need it. It's kind of like in the Christian Bible, Paul is talking and he's saying, you know something, I try to do what's right. I really do. That's what my aim is. But every time I try to do what is right, I end up doing the exact opposite thing. This is what I'm stuck in. You know, Paul could be from 2,000 years ago, but boy, doesn't that sound pretty familiar today with us? And so what we're looking to do is find that automatic pattern. And in finding that, we were going, oh, I understand this. And this is something that my Caveman brand did a long time ago. And I know that I'm going to have to develop not my IQ, but my EQ, my emotional intelligence. Fortunately, that can be developed. And if you're doing that, you really are learning about what makes you tick. And in doing that, you start realizing that, what I am is really one organization of a potential self that could be, that congealed into this thing that I keep calling I, when in fact it's just a particular self that may or may not be useful anymore. The thing is again, that brain of ours locked into that, cemented it into habit, and then that habit starts forming us. And that's where we get stuck. What we're looking to do is to be able to develop your emotional nature to produce a completely different mind for engaging uncertainty. Because the problem is that when we engage uncertainty, our real beliefs about our efficacy to be in the world is exposed. Having come from the trading world, that is front and center. Every time you look at your trading account, the health of it, you're seeing the beliefs that you're projecting onto the screens. Now, in a regular world like we're in, that's not necessarily true. You can avoid that for a very long time. My dad ignored Camel unfiltered cigarettes. He smoked them for 52 years, and people would say, man, you really need to at least get a filter on that thing. And he says, I'm fine, see, look. Until it wasn't. And then the doctor said, Mr. Howell, you need to get your affairs in order. But it was already done. It was already done. It was already done. Cooked and baked. So what you're looking at are looking at patterns that happened a long time ago. And I have no doubt that my dad used nicotine to be able to manage anxiety. Okay, and then the problem is it became a habit, it became an addiction, that he had to use it not just to calm his emotions down, but so that he wouldn't fall into just like feeling horrible and I need my cigarettes. That's when the cigarette companies know they have you. Now, so what we're looking to do is we're looking to say, I realize now, Randy, that there is no freedom from emotion, but there is freedom of emotion. What we're going to do in the course of this work, we're going to teach you how to build emotions that give rise to the mind. Remember, all thinking is emotional state dependent. So you as a social mammalian, being able to decide what emotions are going to be triggered when you're facing uncertainty, the challenges of living, this is key. And I've identified a number that are completely necessary and buildable. Within you, there's just not self-doubt and an inner critic that is judging you and saying you've got to do this, you've got to do that in order to be successful. It's impossible. And you find out that you're your own worst enemy, that you curse yourself out and stuff like that. You learn that's not you either. In emotional intelligence, you find out the mind really is a governing committee. And it's really about who is in charge of the governing committee. Often people use the inner critic, that judger within you, that one that wants you to keep pushing, and an orphan, one that's just trying to be loved. And they'll do anything for you to be loved and accept it. That is what most people live from. What we want to do is we want to develop the discipline, the ability to maintain order of a ruler. We want to be able to develop courage of a warrior to be able to face our fears, not to conquer them, but to master them. We want to find the caregiver. We want to find that self-compassion, that loving kindness directed at ourselves. Because ultimately, it is that compassion that does the heavy emotional lifting of taking an old pattern, emotional pattern, and teasing it apart and organizing it into higher functioning so that you can become a better version of yourself. Absolutely critical. If you don't learn to love yourself, all this stuff is academic. You have to work at the level of emotion. When you do that, what shows up also is the wisdom of a sage, the impartiality of clear thinking of a sage. It is these 4 emotional programs, also known as archetypes, that I teach people to grow and to have. That's what shows up when there is a challenging moment, whether or not it's a speech, no matter what. The thing is, you realize I can actually have the freedom to call forward that emotional response to a situation, a critical situation, instead of the one that you learned when you were live wiring. Friends, come and learn. Come watch more of these videos, go to my website, really explore around, and just say, you know something, I realize that this guy may be giving me the tools to be able to build a new self. Come and find out, learn, realize that you have been given an enormously wonderful gift in being a human being. And it's time to say, wow, let me take it out for a test drive. Let me tune it up. Let me bring it into the now rather than way back then. That's what we're out to do. Come visit, friends. Have a great one.